Well, speaking about the external board, of course, the manual includes all the details on how to install it, but we will also explain step by step. On one hand, we have a connection that says N where we will be placing the neutral that comes from inside. And on the other hand, a connection that says comp where we will place the cable that comes to turn on the compressor. And this is where the external board serves us as a tool. If we energize with 220 volts, 110 or 127 depending on the external board we bought, this board without receiving a signal turns on the compressor to the maximum. Not only does it turn on the compressor through these points U, V, W, we are going to put a color that is more visible. Not only does it turn on through U, V, W, but also through this contact it turns on a DC fan. Notice that here we have to turn on a DC, injecting 310 directly. Here we have the negative, here we have the voltage of 15, and here the two signals. This board is energized and automatically turns on the fan and the motor, which gives us the possibility to use it as a tool. And it also moves the expansion valve to an intermediate and correct position for the operation of a maximum inverter. So it serves us as a tool to test all these elements, fans, motors, and expansion valves. Pay attention to that detail, it serves as a tool. Well, what else do we have here? Well, we have the U, V, W outputs that connect to the motors. We are going to find two more plugs that are clearly indicated with less and more, in which I will have to place the external board dedicated to the capacitors. It comes in two separate boards to connect the capacitors. Here we have the electronic expansion valve in case it has it. If it has a capillary, there is nothing to connect. And up here we have the connection of the only sensor that this board brings, which is the discharge sensor. There is no outdoor temperature sensor or pipe sensor. And here we have a switcher that we have to leave 2, 3, and 4 in the place where it is. There is no need to set it comes from the factory. And number 1 we are going to select in DC because most of the inverter motors are DC. Previously there was another operating system called AC, but it was used very little. These boards allow us that because it is the first inverter, but we are always going to configure in DC inverter. Very important and fundamental detail. At this point and at this, we have to place the original heatsink. Somehow we have to adapt the original heatsink and anchor it to these ovals. Remember that if you do not place the heatsink, the motor will run for a few seconds and the IPM will burn. So pay attention to that very important detail, and that also adds to the work because placing a heatsink is complicated. You have to make holes. The screws do not fit in the exact place. It takes work, so also pay attention to that point. Another important detail, also why I do not recommend inverter boards. Notice that we have no possibility to connect fan motor type U, V, W. Remember the U, V, W that the IPM had on the board. Well, with this universal board, or with none, there is no way to connect that fan, which needs a dedicated IPM on the board. If we touch that case, we also have to change the fan and place a DC or an AC. Well, these are some details about universal boards. This is how they are installed. This is how they work. They serve more as a tool than as a replacement. Know that it exists, that it is there, and this is the model that we recommend to you. All the details come in the instruction manual. Of course, it is not as aesthetic as always, but well, it exists. It is there, and this is the model that will serve you in case you want to make these connections. Here we have the detailed diagram that is included in the board. Please leave a comment if you have any questions.